Greetings to all in the love and light of the one infinite creator. My name is Jonathan Tong, and I'm facilitator for the Seattle Law of One study group. We can be found on the list of study groups on the L&L Research webpage as shown on your screen. We can also be found on Facebook. We do actually meet on Zoom on Tuesdays from 3:30 to 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. You don't have to live in Seattle or near Seattle to join our Facebook group or to join the Zoom sessions. Anyone who's interested and available is welcome to join us. It's also a great way to get announcements for future Q&A sessions like this if you would like to join. Because today we are blessed again to be joined by Jim McCarty for some informal questions and answers and conversation about the Law of One. How are you doing today, Jim?
Doing very well. It's a very beautiful day here in Louisville, Kentucky. A little on the warm side, a little on the dry side. We could use some of that water you all got in Louisiana, Morris and Linda.
But not too much. As I recall, we had some flooding in your state about a month ago, just before our last session.
There was some devastating flooding, that's for sure. They got more than they needed, much more than they needed.
The seasons are changing for sure. Well, we are delighted to have you with us. I'm thankful to have this time together. I noticed as I was reading your Camelot journal, as I always do, it sounds like you are finishing up, it would appear, some edits and some rewriting on book 102. I believe you mentioned something about chapter 8 that you were working on, and that was the last chapter of the book. Am I remembering correctly that Living the Law of One 102 is the outer work, or is it the inner work?
102 is the outer work, and 103 is the inner work. And I've been going back over both of them to try to make some of the concepts clearer, to add some personal information, and to whatever I can do to make the book better. Austin and Gary have been working on editing 102 for a while now, and a lot of L&L work has come up to slow the process. But I thought maybe I would just go ahead with what they hadn't edited already and try to get that in good shape so that when they do get to it, it'll be maybe a little easier for them to do their editing.
Nice. Yeah, so thankful to Gary and Austin for doing that work. As you said, yes, they've always got a million different things. I believe are they back from the European tour? Do you know?
Gary and Trish got back last Tuesday, and Austin is getting back today, providing everything goes well. When Gary and Trish were on their way back, they had a flight delay in Amsterdam, which meant they missed their connection in Atlanta, which got them home in a total of 27 hours from there.
Oh, man. Wow.
So we're hoping Austin does better than that today.
Hope so. Yeah. Well, I heard great things about the gathering in Prague and got to join the online gathering in Berlin also a week ago, I think last Saturday. So really thankful to all the folks who helped put that together. Great to see seekers from all over the world connecting this way. I was wondering, as long as perhaps the rewriting process is recent, can you give us any sneak previews or anything on chapter 8? Can you tell us a little bit about that chapter or any good stories just as a teaser of what we can look forward to?
Well, each chapter has Carla's goals, and what Carla's goal was for chapter 8 was to kind of look back over the process of making the choice of being of service to others or the service to self, and how that choice could be made in various aspects of our life journey as we're living our day-to-day routines. So there were various sections in there about how to do that, how all of humanity and the planet itself and all the other creatures on it are part of a systems of the planet, the earth, wind, fire, water, all the animals, all the people. In some way or other, we all work together on this process. So as I went through the last chapter this morning, I just finished it this morning, I was looking at how the various energy centers are used in these practices of utilizing our catalyst on a day-to-day basis. Our catalyst is the way that we grow. The catalyst is seen as anything that is taking us away from the center of our love, the vibration we feel just perhaps as we get up in the day. We feel like, well, the day is stretching out before me. It feels very good today. And whether it is positive, very happy, excited, blissful sort of an experience, or whether it is sort of difficult, misperceptions and miscommunications, all of these can help us to grow spiritually if we process them and discover their antithesis, the opposite of them, so that as we do this throughout our life experience, we discover we are the creator, a 360-degree being that has every type of response, everything that you can imagine, things you can't imagine within it. We are the same. And so the whole idea here is to know yourself through these balancing processes, then to accept yourself for everything that you've got as a means by which the creator can know itself, which seems to be the reason for the creation, and that you can know yourself, and you can also know the creator within yourself. And that is the whole process of becoming the creator. So that's a thumbnail sketch of chapter 8.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you. And sounds like a wonderful way to kind of tie things together at the end of the book. There are 8 chapters, correct?
Yes, that's it. Number 8.
Nice. Hey, I noticed from looking at the chat window that Brian actually had a question about the balancing meditation. Brian, I'm not sure if Jim answered your question already. If not, would you like to ask a follow-up question or whatever it is that you were wondering about?
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. Hi, Jim. Good to see you again.
Good to see you, Ryan.
Thanks for being here. Yeah, I guess to dovetail on what you said, when reading the material and hearing Ra talk about doing the balancing meditation, I was curious to see like how that looked like for you in your day-to-day life. Is that how you basically go about it? Is working with the catalysts as they come to you, or do you actually do a meditation do something in meditation as well? I'm just curious what that looks like for you if you do, like when you're in meditation, because it seems like kind of like Ra makes it seem, pretty like straightforward, like, you encounter patience as it arises, and then you bring in impatience. But I'm just curious how that practice looked for you, or looked like for Carla when she was doing it, if you all were doing it in meditations. Does that make sense?
Well, that's an interesting question, because meditation was the technique that Ra suggested for people in general. But just in these last few sessions I've been working with in 104, they recommended that Carla use a process of contemplation, that was more effective for her. And I have found that to be more effective for me as well. That when you are able to take whatever type of catalyst that you're working with and see how it developed in your day, and usually at the end of the day is when you do this, then you relive that experience and you make it larger in your mind. If, for example, Ra used the patience and impatience. If you're impatient with somebody or with yourself or with some situation, that you blow it up, you make it very big. Because in 104, Ra said it is the nature of distortion, which is what you're dealing with when you're dealing with any kind of catalyst, that in order to balance the distortion, one must first accentuate it. So as you accentuate it and you make it bigger than it was, it seems to have more of an effect upon your total being. Then you visualize the opposite of that, patience, but you don't create it. You visualize it and then let it go. Let it become big on its own. And when you see that it is just as ridiculously large as the impatient was to start with, I'm patient with everything. Then you accept yourself for having both of these ways for the creator to know itself contained within your being, and for the creator to know itself as a part of you and you a part of it, so that you become more and more the creator as you do this, more and more the 360-degree being that the creator is.
Beautiful. That was very well explained.
Well, thank you, Brian.
Yeah.
That's a great question, Brian. Thank you. Did you have any follow-up questions to that?
Not the moment. I'll probably have one more other question later if there's time, but other than that, thank you. Yeah.
You bet. We will always have time for more questions if you got them. Did want to remind folks who are on the Zoomcast right now, yeah, please do. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat window, and we'll generally go in the order that we see them, unless there's a question that seems to be more appropriate to do sooner. For example, Ishan, I noticed that you had a question also about balancing, utilizing catalyst and balancing. Did you want to ask that question now, if you still haven't?
Recently, Jim had given the clarification on it almost very beautifully. So it was, what I understood of it, it was something like, if we find something of an experience, like patience and impatience was given an example by the Ra, then as you said, Jim, we have to accentuate the given patience or impatience what we have, then find the opposite of it. Am I correct?
Yes, that's right. We need to realize that all of these qualities are available to us as means by which we can realize a greater and greater portion of ourselves as being the creator and having the creator within us. We all have the creator within us, but in order to make our journey to the place or the state of being within us where the creator is, we need to use these qualities that we run into in our daily lives that may be knocking us off of the feeling of acceptance and of love. In session 42, Ra was suggesting that was the basic quality that we have the ability to maintain at a steady state, unless we are encountering something in our lives with a quality that takes us away from that, where it's a jealousy or anger or confusion or misperception, miscommunication, or if we're totally excited about something that happened in our life. We won the lottery, got a lot of money. We have an appointment with the doctor that went well. We were really thrilled with that. All these things can be seen in themselves as having the ability to have the opposite in our life experience. And whether we ever experience that opposite or not, we need to be able to create it within our own meditative or contemplative states, so that we become more and more that 360-degree being, the creator that has all of this as means by which to know itself. And we have these as means to know ourselves as well. So that's the whole process. The sum total, or the bottom line on it, is that it gives us more ability to feel love and acceptance for everyone and for ourselves as well, and to not judge people or ourselves for having any of these qualities. All of these are means by which we come to know ourselves and the creator more perfectly.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Jim.
Thank you too. I appreciate it.
I was getting on to the conclusion by this, like, as the Ra said, the mind contains all things, and this activity, this exercise clearly makes us realize the infiniteness, the variations of qualities we actually can have, the infiniteness we can have. Yeah. And I was having a follow-up question regarding that which quality we should be inclining towards when we are balancing. And then you automatically clarified it, like towards the love and acceptance of all beings. And it was just amazing. Yeah. I get all my answers regarding that.
I'm so glad. Thank you so much for your question.
Thank you.
Always like when that happens. Yes, it's a beautiful thing. Yeah. And thank you for your questions, Ishan. Linda, I think I saw you had a question in the chat window. Would you like to ask?
Hey, Jim, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Good to see you.
Before we go on, I do have a follow-up question that you just answered with Ishan. You basically stated that if we have something good happen, such as a visit to the doctor, we are healthy, that we should go and look at it in the reverse state. So I go home and I contemplate that the doctor told me I have cancer. And if so, what good is that going to do? And is just the thought and the emotion of that, putting that out into the universe, could potentially cause it to become?
That's a good question. To my knowledge, that has not happened and probably would not happen. We need to be able to accept anything that does happen to us or could happen to us, so that there is nothing that is exempt from serving as a means by which we can grow, to accept that which is, it's easy to accept the good things, but they also have an other side to them, the not so good. And if that should happen, even if it never does happen, we need to be able to accept that too, and see that that is not the most important thing in our life pattern. The most important thing is that we see that we are 360-degree beings, that we have all of these means by which to know ourselves. And that's the thing that we're looking for. We want to know ourselves more and more clearly, more in depth. And every aspect of our existence on the planet has the potential for giving us more ways to know ourselves, including having a doctor's visit that doesn't go well, that it didn't give us clear information, it gave us bad information, that we have to deal with that bad information that feels bad to us. And yet, as whether it is actually bad or good is really not the point. The point is we need to be able to accept it as something that provides food for our spiritual growth, because that seems to be the entire reason for this third density illusion, is to be able to use all the catalysts, both the positive and the seeming negative. They seem positive, they seem negative at the time. You never know exactly how things are going to turn out. Sometimes something that looked pretty bad to start with turns out very well. And so we can't know exactly what is bad and what is good. All we can do is use what seems to be bad, what seems to be good, to get to the point of what really is, and that is that we are the creator.
Thank you for that.
Well, thank you for the question.
Well, I can go on to the question that I really had, Jonathan. And Jonathan, beforehand, I do want to thank you. This question came about because you are posting a lot of quo sessions in the things, and we can click on it and we can read the whole session, and that is just so helpful and it's so timely, and I really appreciate you doing that. This question came about because of one that you recently posted that started, I believe, in 2001. I'm just going to read the excerpt from quo. It's just a couple sentences and then my question. It says, one of the primary qualities of the fourth density experience is that which may be seen to be the ability to utilize the frontal lobes of the human brain in a manner which is able to participate as co-creator. The ability to create with the mind these tools and resources necessary for the revitalization of the planetary entity which you call Earth is the primary means whereby the healing of this planet may be achieved. That was done in 2001. I know since then there has been an influx of dual activated third, fourth density souls. Are they able with their frontal lobes to do the work that Quo was referring to here, or are they limited by the third density bodies to not being able to do that work yet?
Well, this is where we get into my opinion. My opinion is they would be more likely to be able to do this type of work, which I perceive to be as something you would call visualization. And Ross suggested that if we can hold visualizations in our mind for a certain length of time, a number of minutes, for example, if we see places on the planet where there's been devastation, let's say it's like in Eastern Kentucky with all the flooding, or in various parts of the planet where there are wars going on and there's catastrophes of people dying. If we could see that area and visualize the power of love flowing through us from our hearts, through perhaps the frontal lobes, and into that area, bringing healing and realization of the oneness of the creator, whatever way you would see it as a means of rectifying the difficulty or curing it, then that is a way that people, not just with the double activated bodies, but this is the work of the adept, to use visualization to see the healed aspect of whatever is occurring on the planet. And I guess you could see this as a kind of balancing of the planet itself, because what's going on in most of these areas, whether it's wars or global warming changes, a devastation of fires and floods and so forth, that this is what we can do to balance the situation and help our Mother Earth to recover from the difficulties that her human population is bringing upon the planet. And so that is my opinion about how that would work.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
It's a great question, Linda. As always, your questions are always great. Appreciate it. And yeah, that session that you were referring to definitely struck me also. That passage that you shared, I think was not necessarily part of the passage that I posted, but yeah, definitely stood out for me in that session. Am I remember correctly, Jim, that when asked about the window of time for transition from third density to fourth density, Ra estimated anywhere between 100 and 700 years? Is that, am I remember correctly?
The time period they gave, with the realization that this began 45 years before the raw contact, which would make it 1935. So we're 70 or 80 years into this process right now. And Ross said it was hard. The reason they couldn't be more accurate or definitive as the time period was that this won't surprise anybody, but our people are very volatile in their decision making, in their actions, in their behavior. So that's just the best they could do, 100 to 700 years.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. And I know we would all love to see it on the sooner side rather than later side. But yeah, my guess is it's going to be a while still. Probably those phenomena that Linda was referring to will probably only increase more so in the next couple hundred years or so. I did have a question that comes up that Linda reminded me of as I'm reading the Camelot Journal. I noticed that you're nearing the end of the rock contact. I think you're on session 104, which means pretty close to the end. I think somebody mentioned this last time we were here, but have you given any consideration to looking at passages from Quo channeling perhaps in future Camelot Journal entries?
Oh, not at this time. What I'm hoping to be able to do is to use the work I've done with 102 and 103 as a continuation of working on the raw contact, so that these concepts that Carla had described in her outlines for 102 and 103 could also be shared with people. I know that a lot of people have either read the book or listened to the audio book of 101, The Choice. And a lot of people are looking forward to seeing and reading and hearing the 102 and 103. So I thought I'd give a preview of all of that before I do anything else. But your idea about using quote channelings is another good idea. I'd like to be able to keep talking about the law of one, because that was really the life work for Don, Carla, and myself. And I really enjoy getting into that. Carla always had the thought that if you are reading the law of one, the raw contact, over and over, that very frequently you'll discover that there is information there that you missed the first time, that it meets you at your level of growth or your ability to perceive, that you can go deeper into it. And that's what I would really like to do. So in some regard, I would like to stay on that track with the raw contact. But the quote channeling, of course, is also very beautifully done, and is many people prefer it because it's more poetic, it's more easily understood, and it's a lot more fun. Raw is very precise and very profound, and occasionally inspirational. But I think that the quote channelings are even more so. So I will probably be doing something like that in the future.
Yeah, Yeah, we are happy to read whatever you choose to write about in the Camelot Journal. And for sure, I can imagine with the quote channelings, there's like 1,600 of them or so. So, I
Yeah.
mean, where one would even start with those to even attempt to go in order. And they're so much longer each one, you could probably spend a month if you really went on it paragraph by paragraph. But um, you can probably just pick any session at random and pick any part of it. And I would love to see how you tie in, what quote might share in one session with things from the raw contact. So who knows, maybe after you go through the raw contact again, this could be another possibility.
We are still channeling Quo.
Right.
The channeling group, the 5 of us, have been working together for 6 years, and they're all quite good. And they're listed on our website as intermediate channeling. And then there's another group, CC channeling. Gary, Austin, and Trish wanted to have extra sessions per month, so they formed their own group and did their work both at Austin's house and at Gary and Trish's house, and went through I gave them all the procedures for the banishing ritual, how to do that so they could protect their environment and purify it. So there's a lot more coming from Quo. It's very well done.
Such a beautiful thing. Yeah, such a joy to see. Really appreciate the teaching and the coaching and the mentoring that you've given them that's enabled them to do that. It's a blessing for all of us, for sure. I do see some other questions in the chat window. Before we get to those, I did actually have a couple questions that were sent in to me from Jasmine Harris, who wanted to join us today, but had a class and wasn't able to. So if you don't mind, I will read you her questions. There are 2 of them. The first one is, recalling the greetings or attacks from higher density complexes that Carla experienced, are there other ways that these beings attempt to contact with us? A tone in one or both ears, sudden watering of the eyes, or other random physical events?
To my knowledge, the only way that the negatively oriented entities attempt to make any kind of contact with people on Earth is usually through the channeling process. And this is because they have the right, as far as the Council of Saturn has the opinion, to present their side of the story. Now, that doesn't always mean they tell you that they are negatively oriented. Sometimes they attempt to mimic what is being channeled through a channel. If the channel doesn't know how to determine who they've got on the line when they're channeling, a lot of contacts that start off very positively oriented have this negative orientation of beings that begin to channel through the entity that's doing the channeling. And after a while, if they're successful in maintaining the contact, then they turn it from positively oriented to negatively oriented. And a lot of channels in this way have been mixed. And they start off very positive, but then since they don't know how to determine who they've got on the line, then the information becomes negatively oriented. So that was one of the things that Carla did as she was learning the channeling process in 1974 when she first started. She knew, like most instruments or channels do, that you need to tune yourself like you're a musical instrument so that you can do the highest and best work possible in a stable fashion. What she also discovered was that you need to challenge any entity, any discarnate entity, especially extraterrestrials, that want to channel through you every time you channel in the name of whatever it is at the heart of your spiritual journey, whatever you live for and would gladly die for. For Carla, that was Jesus Christ. So from the age of 2, she was a follower of Jesus Christ. So anytime any entity would want to channel through her, she would say, do you come in the name of Jesus Christ? Can you say that Jesus Christ is Lord? And she would challenge them 3 times, just in case she wasn't, quite on the ball with the first one, that just the 3rd time was a charm. So in this regard, that was the way that she was able to determine that she had a positively oriented entity who was who they said they were and could channel them without being afraid that this type of information was going to go south on her and become negatively oriented. So that was what she felt was important to do. Now, you can challenge every person. When we had our channeling sessions, that was part of what everyone who wanted to be a channel had to do. Figure out what it was that is the heart of your spiritual journey, what you would gladly die for if you had to, and which you live for every day. It could be the Buddha, it could be Muhammad, it could be any of the saints, it could be a quality such as service to others, it'd be a quality of unconditional love. Whatever it is, you need to determine that. Any channel needs to determine that. So that was the basic thing about how to deal with the psychic greetings. Psychic greetings, though, in general, can manifest for people who are working in a spiritual sense, not necessarily channeling, but producing information in some fashion that can enlighten people or can give them the power to make the choice of being of service to others and increase their polarity and increase the positive nature of planet Earth. So that psychic greetings, if there is a problem, any kind of problem that has been caused and brought about by the person, him or herself, in some form of miscommunication or disharmony or anger or whatever it is, if you make that choice, a free will choice to do that as part of your interaction with others in that group or somewhere else, then that choice you make can be intensified or magnified so that it becomes a problem for you that you need to solve as soon as possible, because these types of negative choices can have serious side effects. An example of that was back in 1983, when Don wanted to publish the 3 books we had at that point of the Law of One together in one book. And I said, Don, that's a great idea. But since I was keeping the books, I knew we couldn't afford to do that. But he wanted to do it. And so I said, Don, that is not possible. You know, we cannot afford it. And so just about that moment, we were in the living room at the Waterston Trail house. Somebody knocked at the door. And we had a couch that separated the large, long living room into an area that we could use for channeling. And the rest of the room would just be from the door to that couch. Well, to express my anger, I hurdled that couch and went to the door and answered it and let them in. And I let that anger that I had go overnight. So overnight, a common wood spider bit me on my arm, directed by a negative entity, so that it could be intensified into the bite that was equivalent of a cottonmouth snake, a water moccasin. So within 2 weeks, I gained 30 pounds of water weight and had to go to the doctor to figure out what to do about all of this, and had to go through a lot of medications and so forth. But the most important thing was to balance the anger that I felt with Don. Now, anybody in a similar situation that has spiritual work, that has the ability to cause changes in consciousness in the positive sense, needs to be, since you're standing close to the light, you need to reflect that light as purely as possible. And by making any kind of a conscious choice otherwise, that is not in resonance with that light, then you open yourself to the possibility of a psychic greeting. It might not happen or it might happen, but that is the way it can happen.
Appreciate your explanation on that. And yeah, I remember, I believe you wrote about that incident with the spider in the Camelot Journal not that long ago. I remember, and it was, I believe it was Ra who explained that situation and what happened with the venom of the spider being intensified. It's a great teaching for sure. Thank you. I wanted to go back to one thing that Jasmine asked about. She was asking about a tone in one or both ears. And I seem to remember something in the raw contact where they did in fact talk about maybe a ringing in Don's ears in his left ear or right ear. And I believe there was a suggestion that a ringing in left ear could be interpreted as a negative contact of sorts, and ringing in the right ear as a positive. Am I remembering that correctly?
Not in polarity or positive or negative, in a yes or no, as to whether you should go in this direction or not. The right ear was yes, go in that direction. Left ear, no, don't go in that direction.
Oh, interesting. Do you think that was just specifically for Don at that particular time, or is that
I
generally
believe
true
that
for
was
all?
a general recommendation as to what these ringing in the ear could mean. I think it was definitely specifically for Don because he heard those ringing in the ear. Over the years, I've had ringing in my ears, but then I've never figured out if it was, it wasn't at times when I was trying to make a decision. So for me, that has not been a way of determining whether I should do something or not. It's just ringing in my ear.
And you didn't have any sense of it being positive or negative? Or
No, I think you need to be concerned about some direction to go, asking it inwardly, and then some sort of a sign would be given, and it could be ringing in the ears.
Interesting. Okay. Well, thank you. Well, definitely bear that in mind. Jasmine did have a second question that I wanted to relay to you. And she said, respecting the law of confusion, did Ra ever share any specific instructions on how to facilitate energy healing of self and other selves, mind, body, spirit complexes? If so, can you share details with us?
The most generally available way that people could heal each other is if there, well, not necessarily a disease, but a problem of communication was forgiveness. And forgiveness, as Roz said, stopped the wheel of karma, so that the disharmony or miscommunication could be healed. Ra also in sessions 4, 5, and 6 gave us some exercises for healing that would deal with what we would call diseases of mind, body, or spirit. And in those exercises, they basically use the balancing exercise that we've been talking about. So it's not just used for our own personal processing of catalyst, which could be seen as a healing as well as becoming the creator, but for whatever situation that you might encounter, so that you could help another person heal themselves. Ra mentioned that the healer does not heal. What the healer does is become so crystallized that they can interrupt that protective shell that's made of the red and the violet ray energy centers that holds in place whatever situation of sickness/health we have at the moment in mind, body, or spirit. So the healer can interrupt that so that a new path can be taken by the one to be healed if they are able to accept the new path. And basically, if the higher self says it's time for the healing. So, and if there is no healing, Ross suggested that the one to be healed then may look at the situation they wanted to be healed and see if there's some positive use of that situation that they could make and learn from it. Sometimes a difficulty like that is meant to last for a period of time, so that it provides a consistent and continuing catalyst that a person can use to achieve a greater healing than just a momentary healing of a certain situation.
Thank you. Jasmine, I hope that answers your two questions. If not, feel free to join us next time when we meet, or you can also email at Jim. I believe there's a L&L contact email.
Contact at llresearch.org.
And yes, answering emails is another service that Jim and others offer very graciously. Always appreciate your time and care in responding to emails. Ishan, I see that you have a second question. Would you like to ask?
Yes, I had a question. Before that, I would like a question regarding what Jim said right now. Like he said, if there is a healing, if not is actually happening, healing is taking a long time, there may be a greater healing occurring. He said something like that. So can you please elaborate on that? Because it's something it is relating to me, because it is like I am healing from around more than 5 years from a condition, and it is like, it is a type of spiritual catalyst for me, and I would like to get to know about it.
Yes. I don't know if you're familiar with a fellow by the name of Dr. Michael Newton, who wrote Journey of Souls. He discovered that many people before their incarnations make pre-incarnative choices that are what you would call opposites programming. They program in an opposite situation that looks deleterious, that looks hurtful and like a disease of some sort, that is meant to produce its opposite within the incarnation over a period of time. It's not something that is healed right away. I can give you an example for myself. Ross suggested that I had asked at one point why I had this problem with anger and how I could balance that. And Ross suggested that what I had gone through was something that was similar to this opposites programming, that I had a great deal of wisdom, and I was trying to balance that wisdom with compassion or with love. And the way that I chose to do it was to program a lack of compassion or love for myself. A positive oriented entity wouldn't program it for others, only for the self. So the way that manifested in my life was that I got angry at myself when I made mistakes. It started when I was in the 4th grade. I was trying to hit a baseball with a baseball bat out in the yard, and I kept missing it. So I got angry and threw the bat through the bathroom window. And all through my life, when I would get angry, I'd get angry at myself for pounding a nail and it going crooked, for sawing a line and it being crooked, for making one mistake or another, and then breaking the tool that I was using. And that lasted until August 3rd, 2015, when I was in my bedroom about 10 o'clock at night before I was going to bed. I was typing on my computer. The power cord, for some reason, came out 3 times on the computer. So I took the power cord and I whacked the back of the computer with it, and I broke the monitor. And so that was it for the computer for the night. So I got into bed and I said to myself, here I go again. I've broken a valuable tool because I made a mistake. And I got angry at myself. And I thought to myself at that time, what if I could accept myself right here, right now, in the pit of my despair? And all of a sudden, my heart started beating fast, and there were tears coming out of my eyes. And I knew at that moment, I finally had accepted myself. I could love myself. And because of that, I could love other people. And it only took 68 years.
It was so profound, so much profound.
That's a
Thanks a lot.
beautiful story. Yes.
My
Did you have-
question, which I was lifting, was regarding like Jim. When I first read your channeling, it was like you sort of the idea was to get on a perception like you people are channeling an extraterrestrial or 6th density being. It was like some kind of supernatural or paranormal. It was I was considering you a type of being who would have some sort of magical powers or something at the first sight. And in that they were given things too regarding the ray of the adept, the intelligent infinity from which it is transmuted and transforming. And the thing about the magical ability of the adept. And the last video I have seen of yours, you have told about your meditation, like you do 3 times of meditation in a day, 1 hour each. And I see the purpose of meditation is to be more close to the creator. Do you actually, my question regarding was, do you practice magical meditation, like white magic, healing of the planet and other type of things? And can you elaborate more on the magical personality and the ray of the adept?
Okay, I'll do the best I can. Magical personality is the equivalent of our higher self that we use in a specific way. The only way that I use it now is to perform the banishing ritual of a lesser pentagram in this room where we do our channeling every day. And I've been doing that, I don't know how many years now, but that is a way of providing a protection for the room and a purification of the room so that when channeling occurs here, that no negatively oriented entities are able to enter this space. We did this same ritual for the raw contact. And we also did a ritual called Walking the Circle of One, which Ra gave us as a means of protecting the room in which we worked as the contact from Ra was being held there. So these ways of protecting a room are magical in nature, in that they create a change in consciousness for the positive in the room and for the inhibiting of negatively oriented entities from entering the room or anywhere near the vicinity of the room. In my meditations, I don't do magical work per se. What I'm trying to do in the meditations is to discover more of the creator that does reside within in a certain way of meditation that was given to me through inner direction. It is something that I believe works for me, but I doubt if anybody else would be able to use the same one. I think one of the words Ra used frequently that is important is unique. We are all unique beings. We all have our own way of doing whatever we do, including our meditation, including attempting to do magical work. So Ra suggested that any kind of magical work we try to do, right away, we would be more successful in using certain magical rituals, such as the banishing ritual of the lesser pentagram. We could get results right away with that. But the most magical thing we can ever do is to create our own rituals, which over a period of time will become more magical for us than any other ritual, because it will resonate with our own inner being that is the creator. And by getting these inner intuitions or instructions, then we can figure out our own path and our own way of doing our meditations. So I hope that's answered your question. Do you have a follow-up on that?
Yeah, I have a follow-up on that. Thank you for that. Thanks a lot for that. It was like you have told about, whenever you do meditation, you seek the creator. And what I have got from what you have said regarding the magical workings is that the magical workings are like the manipulation of subtle energies, the manipulation of the intelligent energy was from the indigo ray. And what you are doing is a deeper, much deeper thing. It is from a causal aspect of the self, discovering from the deepest fabric of the reality, the creator. And I would like to know, like, what depths of creator are you currently able to explore, or what we can discover of the creator?
That would be hard to explain. In my own experience, the practice of meditation that I do is to begin to activate the indigo and violet rays, which signify the intelligent energy in the indigo and intelligent affinity in the violet, that can bring forth some sort of a perception of the creator. Sometimes it actually is in words, very infrequently, in directions. More times it is in thoughts that, as Carla said, are too deep for words. Words can only go so far in giving us information, but it can be very inspiring information. So what I would try to do each day is to just open myself to that indigo and violet ray work that can eventually become more and more an experience of the creator and can manifest itself in ways that I cannot predict in my daily round of activities.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim.
Well, thank you for your question.
Those are great questions. We are going deep today, my friends. I remember as you were talking about the white magic question, I remember, or I was trying to remember, there was a session with Quo that I read a while ago where they were asking about being an adept. And there were concerns within the group that people in the group weren't really ready for the depth of commitment of that path that they were associating with it. And I remember Quo said something to the effect that anyone can be an adept who commits to finding out the truth of who they are and why they're here. And you don't necessarily have to commit to all the high rituals that go with the ancient white magic. But it just reminded me of the story that you're saying about how you dealt with the anger that you had in that incident that caused you to bring about that change and to change the anger to love and acceptance and forgiveness. And there were a lot of folks who noted in the chat window that that really resonated with them. And that is something that a lot of people have gone through. And it seems to me that act of being able to transmute, to change that anger to love and acceptance, forgiveness, seems a form of white magic, or at least a form of love at its best. Does that make sense to you? Do you think there's any truth to that, Jim?
Well, I think that anybody who seeks to work within the blue ray, which is the clear communication and inspiration shared back and forth between people, is beginning that work. And Ross suggested that once you get your heart open and you have unconditional love that pours forth from you to everyone around you, then you can, what they said, springboard into the higher energy centers and begin the work of the adept, which is most particularly in the indigo ray. And that's the work in consciousness, where you attempt to create changes in consciousness through your will and faith, through your daily practices. You continue to make this choice that you want to know the creator and be the creator and share the creator and see the creator everywhere. That is your goal. And I don't think it's anything that you can judge yourself on, or anybody can judge yourself as to how well you're doing it, or if you're doing it, because this is not the density of understanding, as Ross said. All we can do here that we have control over is to intend. We can set our intentions. And so I think that's what the important thing to do. And you can study the different things that Ra has to say about the adept and how the adept works one way or another, and see how that fits into your own life pattern, and to develop your own rituals and your own processes. Because again, you are a unique being, one size doesn't fit all. We're all different sizes here.
Indeed. Yeah, thank you. Hey, I'm looking at my clock and I'm seeing that we are approaching the end of our hour, and I do see a few folks with questions in the chat window. So let me make sure that everyone has a chance to ask their questions. Brian, sounds like you had a question you wanted to ask.
I did, yeah. I'm just getting outside so that I don't have as much background noise. Okay. Yeah, so to make this succinct, Jim, is that like how I've been saying to my partner, I feel like Ra has been like yelling at me. I literally, it's been crazy. I've been seeing Ra everywhere, just the words RA, and all kinds of other just synchronicities around Ra, and it's all like just keeps pointing me towards it. And I'm just curious, like, obviously channeling is not a possibility, but do you or did Carla, did any of y'all like still like maintain any type of contact through meditation in any form with Ra? Like, is there a way that you still connect with them, or do you just kind of feel their presence around your work? Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. As far as you're seeing Ra here and there, I think that is something that is important to you, and you're the one that has to figure out what it means. Getting closer in contact with Ra, or studying the material, whatever it is, whatever you are thinking of doing when you see the Ra, I don't know. It could be like a totem animal giving you the yes, do that. But as far as maintaining contact with Ra, we've been channeling Quo since 1986. 2 years after the Ra contact was over. And when we asked Quo who they were, they said that they were not the ordinary planetary mind or social memory complex, such as Hatan was of the fourth density when we first started channeling, or Don and Carla did back in 61. And they were also La Tui, which was fifth density, social memory complex, but they were a principle that included those of Ra in a step down fashion, which did not require trance, but which was not as specific or precise as the original Ra contact Ra. It's the same Ra, but usually it is La Tui that gives voice to the Quo channelings. So when we're channeling Quo, we're getting some input from Ra, but it's being blended with the fourth and the fifth densities as well. So that I think that is probably why a lot of people find more of a ability to appreciate the Quo channelings and to resonate with them, because there's a kind of poetry, as I mentioned before, that comes from the blending of these three principles, so three planetary minds. So we still do have a contact with Ra in that regard.
Okay, cool. So would you say that like Ra was probably, the ability to get as close to the truth with a capital T in kind of a short amount of time, whereas like Quo is kind of like, when you say poetic, it requires more of the seeker to like meditate on and decipher for themselves. I mean, obviously the raw material does too, but would you say that it kind of requires like almost more contemplation in that sense?
I don't know exactly how I would put it. That's one way of putting it. Quo seems to be able to speak in a way that is more accessible, that it has more use in the everyday round of activities, that gives you examples of how to carry out the concepts or the principles that Ra gives as concepts and principles without going further and elaborating on how to carry them out, gives them to you so you can determine that for yourself. Quo sort of engages in a spiritual walk with you, even a dance, and makes the concepts more real, more fun, if you feel like dancing, at least I do.
Totally. Awesome. Thank you. And I just want to say thank you too for, I know Jonathan mentioned this, but I remember reading in the material that you had about the anger and the wisdom thing for you. And I remember that struck a chord with me at that time. And when you just shared what you did around that, that was really powerful for me, because I have a very, very, very similar experience. And so I just appreciate you sharing that. I really needed to hear that in this particular session. So thank you.
Well, thank you, and good luck with it. It's there for a purpose, and I know you're going to figure it out.
Yeah. Thank you. Great questions, Brian. Thank you. Andre, do you still have a question to ask Jim?
Yeah. So I was wondering if Jim's tried any new kinds of meditations since last month.
The one you gave me?
Well, I don't know. That was my question. That was one of my questions. I got a second one too.
Yeah. I read through what you had to say, and it was very beautiful, and I really loved it. But all of the words, to me, were more of a contemplation rather than a meditation. So I benefited more by reading the words and feeling inspired. And maybe then going into meditation without words. So I thank you for sending it along. It was quite beautiful.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah. And yeah, my other question is if you guys received the archive book that I sent of the 1990s LL archives, because I put it into one book.
Where did you send it?
Well, I was talking to Austin on email, and he gave me a PO box for LL research.
5195. Yeah.
I don't remember by heart, but
yeah.
like that.
Well, that's where it would have come in. And I have not seen it, but Austin may have gotten it. Like I said, he's been gone for 2.5 weeks now. So
okay.
I'll ask him about it. He should be over here on Wednesday. We're going to have a gathering. And
Well,
So,
I'll ask again next month then.
okay, yeah.
Okay.
So I will look forward to that. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
That's good. Thank you, Andre. We are just about out of time, and I know Jessica had a question, and I was thinking that was the last question I saw in the chat window, but I'm having a little bit of a hard time keeping track of everything. So if there was anyone who had a question other than Jessica, please let me know, put your hand up or put it in the chat window again. Otherwise, I think we'll be wrapping up pretty soon. Jessica, you had a question?
I did. Hi, Jim. I know Carla, as you said, left detailed outlines for 102 and 103, and I'm sure she was very thorough. But I was wondering if you could describe the ways, if any, she continued to contribute and or lend her influence to the writing of the books.
Well, I think she did. I asked her to do that in whatever way was possible, whether I was aware of it or not. And I felt various times that there was some assistance coming through, and thoughts would pop into my mind that I thought, that's the direction I want to go. And I didn't have an idea before that. And a couple of times I wasn't sure of what I should do in a certain area. So I would meditate on it and I would get some advice there. And I have a hunch it was probably Carla giving me some help. You know, I've heard of people all over the planet that have contact with her from time to time, and she helps out with one thing and another. So I'm pretty sure that she's been helping me out as well. And I'm very grateful for it. I need all the help I can get.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your question and your thoughts.
That is a great question, Jessica. I had been wondering about that myself, but I have not gotten around to asking. Thank you for asking for me. I think we are just about out of time for today. So I did want to thank everyone for being here. And Jim did want to check and see if you have any closing thoughts or anything you wanted to share before we wrap things up for this time.
Well, this has been one of the most fun talks and question and answer sessions that we've had. And I really want to thank everybody for the questions that you gave and asked. I think you always bring out the best in me. I think that hopefully it's possible that my answers might help bring out some of the best in you. So we're working together on this project, and questions and answers are always a great way for everybody to learn. We all learn together. You know, we're the tribe of humanity on planet Earth, as Carla said, and we need each other on this journey. You know, it's long and sometimes it's hard. And by helping each other out, we're more likely to get there together. So thank you for helping me on my journey. It's an honor to help you on your journey. And I love you all. Thank you for being here at this time.
We love you very, very much, my friend. Thank you so much for the gift of your time and presence and all you've done and all you continue to do in service to others. Thank you for all our friends and family at L&L Research for all they do in service to others. Thank you for everyone on this call for being here. Whether you asked a question or not, your presence here is meaningful and adds a lot to this. So thank you very much to everyone who is listening to or watching this later on. Blessings to you, and thank you for all you do. Until next time, in the love and light of the one infinite creator. Adonai. Namaste.
Adonai. Take care, my friends. Love you all.
Love you all.